So we have a chat channel now on IRC. Matt, did you actually register that channel with Freenode by chance? Since you created it?
Did I create it? I didn't register it. No, I just joined it basically.
So what I propose is this: let's create a user, NRE Labs, on IRC. We can register that user and then have that user register the NRE Labs channel. If IRC is what we want to use. The other thing I was looking at is there are some tools available that we might be able to host. I didn't put this in the agenda, by the way, it just popped into my head. Where there's like a server process that runs and it keeps, and multiple people can log into IRC through this server, and the server keeps them logged into IRC. And then they log into the server. And what happens is whatever channels that they're joined at the time that they close out their IRC tool, when they reload that IRC tool and rejoin or reattach, they won't have lost any history in those IRC channels. And we can configure it so it just logs people into NRE Labs. If that's too complicated, there's also the possibility of doing something like Matrix or Riot, or we can just stick with IRC as it is. I don't, whatever you want to do. I know for myself, I don't want to miss messages. So what I've done is I've this laptop you see back here, I've rebuilt it running Linux, and it's waving to the laptop. Say hello to the laptop. It's running this backend server. Well, it's going to be running this backend server soon, as soon as I get it working, and then I'll remain logged in through that server, and then for my dev box, which I'm currently on, I'll be able to. I won't lose any history on the channel. So there's a couple of different tools that do that. I think Quassel IRC, and there's another tool called the Lounge, which is another IRC client that does the same thing. If anyone's interested in that and doesn't want to lose history. Okay, Matt has posted a new guide for curriculum and platform reviewers. I don't think it's merged yet, but the pull request is out there. The link is in the agenda. I'll put it in the chat here. Okay, posted to chat. If Matt would like to say a few words about it, that'd be great.
As you can hear in the background, I'm making coffee. So can you give me talk about something else and give me 30 seconds?
Okay, I'll do that. I have posted an image creation blog post. By the way, it was actually published on the website on Monday, yesterday. I am putting that in the chat as well. The link is also in the agenda. This is for anyone who's ever thought about building a lesson, you'll probably know that it's my belief now that I've done a few stages that creating an image for the lesson, and when I say image, I mean a Docker file, and possibly building an ISO that'll be run from QEMU inside a Docker image. That is easily the most tedious and difficult thing to do is those builds. So what I did was I sort of put an explanation into Word format on the sort of 3 stages of how an image is created. Anyways, that post is now available. And I encourage you to read it if you're interested in how to make, in creating any kind of content for the site, curriculum content. This current process is going to change because in stages 1 and 3, there's lots of things that need to be automated or that can be automated. And so there's going to be things changing in those stages, and that'll be documented in the MP3 proposal, hopefully by the end of this week, which is something I'll be working on, is some ideas around how we go about automating those things. Okay, what else?
Just on the same topic, more or less, I've had the first meeting with my students that are going to work on trying to think about securing the VMs and so on. So I guess they will be interested in the process. So I'll make sure they have read this blog post and maybe talk to you about the options that they are going to review, like maybe what's, I'm thinking about KubeVirt or stuff like that, that involves creating VMs inside containers. So maybe it's related, and I guess that would be interesting for them.
So okay, yeah, that's great. Well, let's schedule a time, and we'll do that. We brought this up last week too, I think.
Yeah.
So whenever time works for you, let me know, and I'll
I have to find you on IRC and decide that.
So we have a question. What if it says, how does the process change if you're using an already Docker image like CEOS or CRPD? So I think what will happen is and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong when he gets back from making his coffee. We're thinking that all of our images, all of them, will actually be will be running what I think now is being called a micro VM, which is a custom kernel built for our platform. It's only compiled with the drivers needed to be loaded according to how we use QEMU to load them. So VirtIO, IDE, serial interface, and the drivers. Well, the VirtIO will include the drivers for the network interfaces. So it'll be a microkernel that we're loading going forward, because they're very small, like 150, 200 meg for the in terms of disk, and they occupy very like 25 to 40 meg of RAM. And then on top of, so it'll be that running in a container, and then whatever software we're running for those images will be running on top of the VM. So as convoluted as it sounds, it'll actually be a container running a micro VM running a container for CRPD or CEOS. That was what our thinking was. If now that's not necessarily etched in stone, if we can come up with a way to really secure the containers, that would be great. That's what Olivier was just speaking to. The issue with that is right now I'm not sure what that is, because in order for some of these containers to run, we have to give them netadmin or admin privileges in order to make the changes they need to make to run, and that's something that we kind of want to avoid.
Yeah, the primary reason for the micro VM, there's a few, but the primary reason is so that we can have, from a platform perspective, we can have a consistent deployment mechanism. So it doesn't matter what's running inside of the quote image, whatever that means, right? And that consistent format, we don't have to care really if we've granted it privileged access or net admin capabilities. If we do go more granular than privileged, I would say we probably should, but regardless, it just doesn't matter nearly as much if you're running a micro VM inside of that, because then the escape, the security footprint for escaping that is way harder.
Yeah.
Versus if you're just running in a native container. So right now, what we're doing in order to facilitate virtual images, like from network devices, is we actually have, there's a flag within Syringe that allows you to configure a list of image names that get privileged permissions. And Syringe, what it'll do is when it detects that a lesson's being spun up with those images, it'll grant those pods privileged access. And we, on the production side of things, like as we configure things for the actual NRE Lab site, what we do is we just make sure that only images that we know, because we manage the curriculum basically, that we know have a VM running within them, so we can do that. We can do that safely. But that's not a scalable model. And obviously, even all of that doesn't solve any of the problems that Derek brought up with respect to how difficult it is to actually build images, which not everybody needs to do. Not every lesson needs a new image, but when it does come up, it is a point of friction. So there's a bunch of reasons we're tackling this, but that's sort of the summary of it. It's not just as simple as having a working Docker image. It's not just a Docker image, really. It's an image that's compatible with Antidote is the nuts and bolts of it, really.
Yes. So, good question. So yeah, again, I'll be making those. This week. I'll be editing the MP3 doc with some draft outline of what we're thinking. It'll get fleshed out over time as we both try to technically actually achieve what's in that document, and as we talk about what should the trend be going forward in the future as a community.
And hey, the MP3 draft doc might be out before the MP1 draft doc. Or finished anyway. I mean, the MP1 doc is out in a PR, but it's a mess. It's not by any stretch finished. So MP3 will be done first, I expect.
So if Matt, if you're ready, why don't we have a discussion around the new guide for curriculum and platform viewers, because it's significant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what PR did I open for this? 62 in the docs repo.
Yep.
Yeah. So I kind of did a bunch of things with this PR, but I'll talk about the reviewer documentation. So previously, if you look at the docs right now, because obviously this hasn't been merged. If you look at the docs right now, you'll see the section that says contributing to the NRE Labs curriculum. And at the bottom of that, there's like a kind of a weird, awkward paragraph that covers some of the things that reviewers of people who are reviewing curriculum PRs should be on the lookout for. And the way it's written is also very weird. It's kind of written towards the contributor, but it mentions these are the things that reviewers will be looking for. I wrote that when it was pretty much me and Derek just reviewing everything, which obviously we don't want to do. We want everybody to have the opportunity to review everything. And so providing a dedicated doc to guide folks on here are the kind of things that we think are important to look for empowers everybody to do that. Because as I've said in the docs in many other places, that you don't need permissions to provide a review. Anybody can do that on any PR at any time. So the PR in question, the one I opened for the docs, PR 62, is really just breaking that awkward paragraph out into its own page, and then of course expanding on it. I cover things like here are some of the things that we hope to have automated as part of like the CI process for the curriculum. For instance, we run the SYRCTL validate tool. I think it's been a while since I looked at that, but that's the intention. One thing I learned early
tested.
Yeah. One thing I learned early on in my software career was you really should not be doing when you give a code review, for instance, you really should not be leaving comments like in the world of Python, for instance, this line is 80 characters or greater or whatever, anything PEP8 related. You're mixing tabs and spaces, which is horrible, but you shouldn't be leaving comments like that. Anything you can automate, you should automate in the CI process. Reviews should not include comments that could be automated. And so the idea is that we automate as much as we can. And since this isn't just Python code, this is like a curriculum. We want to run tools like SYRCTL validate on all PRs. And that's a really nice way of basically having not a foolproof mechanism, but a really good way to know that all of the basics are there in every contribution. Does every stage have does every stage per endpoint have a config file, for instance? Are all of the data types in the lesson metadata file like there properly? All of that stuff that you should not, that no reviewer should have to worry about or comment on. So that's the first step. There's a bunch of automated checks. Is the changelog updated properly? Again, that shouldn't be something that a reviewer has to keep in mind. It just should be automated. And if you don't do the thing you're supposed to do in the PR, the build should fail. That's the intention. Anyway, there's also a bunch of stuff that can't be automated. Obviously, content quality is up there. Olivier, we discussed this with you last week. Basically, I put things there that make sense, but as somebody who has experience in education, you might have opinions here. So happy to augment this, or really maybe we can merge this guide, because this isn't meant to be finished by any stretch. These aren't like the rules. It's just these are the things that are on my mind every time I do a review. So if I merge this and you have some thoughts, feel free to open your own PR. That's fine too. And then, of course, there's technical things. Folks that know the Antidote platform, like myself and Derek, will have opinions here. But as others, get up to speed with the features that are in Antidote, feel free to add to this as well. This is mostly just, are we taking advantage of the platform in full? Like, are we taking advantage of the platform? Because the reality is, even though the curriculum and the platform are separate, they come from the same birthplace. So, the Enery Labs curriculum should be a flagship example of an Antidote curriculum. And so that's the idea. Not just is it compatible? Obviously, like I said, SYRCTL Validate helps with that to a large extent, but other things that can't be automated, like do all of the images, are all the images built correctly? Like, do we have the right security options in place? Which is actually part of what MP3 is tackling. So there's sort of a threefold thing that reviewers should be able to look out for, making sure all the automated checks are working, and passing, of course. Is the quality of the content there? And then, of course, are we taking advantage from a technical aspect of everything underlying it? So that was the original intent for my docs pull request. There was also a change. I also, I can't remember why, but for some reason I decided to also tackle the expansion of the platform hacking guide. The change I made was just a bare minimum, basically, because if you look at the steps for the Antidote Web instructions, like how to spin up a test version of Antidote Web, it really sucks. Like, it's just not great. And the reason for that is there's no mock data for syringe. There's no mock syringe data in Antidote Web, and that needs to happen. So I'm going to take that on. But there's no need to wait for this PR to merge for that. So I expect that this change for the platform hacking guide is good enough for now, and I'll circle back once I improve the Antidote Web testing step. And then the other thing is this is also something I was teasing around with. This is also something I have experience with in some of my older software teams as well. Anytime you want to propose like a really complicated change, and this is a platform thing. This has nothing to do with the curriculum, by the way. Anytime you want to add something to the platform that's pretty complicated, or especially that needs to be done across both the web front end as well as Syringe or maybe other components, what I'm proposing, and I've started to do this myself and providing some examples, is to create a blueprint. Although the verbiage I'm borrowing from effectively my experience with OpenStack, because this is how OpenStack works. Whenever you want to create a new feature, you create a blueprint. I'm borrowing the verbiage there, but I by no means mean the actual specific implementation of that. As an example, we're not using Launchpad, so that's a pretty good indicator. But generally what I mean is just basically a markdown file in the proposals repo where you explain what it is that you have in mind. That way everybody gets on the same page. That way there's a shared there's one place to go for everything, regardless of whether or not the particular feature is being worked on in the web UI or Syringe or whatever it is. It's sort of a central place for explaining the feature you have in mind. Again, this is pretty limited to like really complicated things. If there's a feature that just requires orchestration across all of the different, sub projects of the platform, that's kind of a good indicator that a blueprint is needed. If it's just a simple bug fix in Syringe, or even a feature like a new config flag in Syringe, there's no need for a blueprint. As I say in the doc, there's not really a hard rule on when it's required. It's sort of a gut thing. If a maintainer asks to, for one to be created, that's kind of the, basically like, try to respect that, just because it's one of those gut check things. But again, it's not meant to be super formal. There's a list of things there in the section there, on my on PR 62 for Antidote repo for the docs, that covers basically what are the things that we would want to see in a blueprint, that helps make sure people have everything they need to move forward. And I think it'll be a good thing for me as well, because this is what I've been working on lately, is building things like blueprints. Really, this is basically what the mini project docs are, just they're bigger. And it helps folks understand what work is involved in that way. More than one person can get involved with doing the work, which is always a good thing. So anyway, those are the 3 things in my PR. Sorry for rambling. Like I said, there's not really a cohesive, like, overarching theme for this PR. Again, it started as the reviewer guide, and then I just kind of decided to tack 2 things on. They're not super related, but the good news is that they also don't rely on each other either. So those are the 3 things in the docs repo. I've been doing a lot of docs PRs lately, I've noticed.
That's okay. Docs are good.
Yeah.
So if you look in chat, we have a new, way more direct and more human readable URL for our YouTube channel. It used to be, youtube.com/c/ and then an impenetrable random.
Oh, you mean I can't follow NRA Labs at C/672U5567?
Yeah, let's not do that. So that's what I haven't. We've customized the URL, which is something we should have done a while back. It just slipped our mind. It's for whatever reason it slipped my mind. So it's been changed, and it's been updated in the docs as well. Lisa, you made some minor changes. I don't know if they're minor. They seem minor, but because it's only like 1 line change. But you've reworded a line about what is. I'm sorry. Yeah, why don't you explain it? How about that?
I'm sorry. What did I change? I'm sorry.
Yes, I will pull that. Hold on 1 second. Get back to where I was when I saw that. Oh, nice. I got logged out. There was a change to the governance doc. Something about minimally. You change like the voting quorum or the committee will consist minimally of.
Lisa, that's why you and I were talking.
Here, let me pull that up.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of going through and resolving Olivier's comments and otherwise making the governance doc a little bit neater. Elsewhere in the news, we are almost done with a massive revision of the terms of use. Right now, what's on the site was actually designed for something entirely different and Juniper specific, and so I've been working with legal to gently pry from their imagined grasp the oversight and control of the site. So we're just down to wording the privacy section in a way that makes sense for the parameters of NRA Labs. And so that will be hopefully done in the next couple of weeks. And then the third bit of news probably is,
which I do want to say that has required many meetings. Nobody will ever know how many meetings that has required.
You haven't even been in all of them.
I know, that's my point. I've reached my limit and I've been in like half.
But so elsewhere in the news, we finally heard back from the Software Freedom Conservancy. They have redone their application, and so I'm now in the process of filling out their new application. at which point we will submit it again and wait for them to review it and give us a word. So I imagine this will probably be another couple of months before we have any kind of definitive answer from them. But I just wanted to give people a heads up that's what was happening. And then finally, I think the other item of note is, as I think folks know, we've been in the process of redoing the front end of NRE Labs to make it easier to find everything from the core NRE Labs site. So, you know, right now, if you go to NRE, you know, labs.nre, you know, networkreliability.engineering, you would have no real way of knowing, for example, that we have a YouTube. There's not an obvious way to get to our community or chat platforms and so forth and so on. So we're just kind of bringing that all under one roof, so to speak, and making it just easier to find everything. And so we're doing user testing, I believe, this week going into next week. And then we should be pretty close to done.
Good.
So I know that was a rapid fire dump, but any questions on any of that?
Nope, this is good.
Okay.
I'm feeling your pain about all the legalese and meetings and so on.
You know, our legal team, they're actually very lovely to work with. They are not super familiar with open source and how that works, and their entire frame of reference is, you know, controlling the intellectual property of a vendor. But they're absolutely willing to learn, and so I really can't knock them.
Yeah, the resistance has thus far been just from ignorance isn't the right word, but it's basically like just lack of experience in this particular way of doing things. They haven't, at least to me, which is different from some of the lawyers I've worked with other companies, seemed like they've been trying to like argue. They want us to have our way. It's just they don't know how.
Yeah. So.
All right. That is all I had for items for the meeting this week. So it's kind of open discussion from here. Matt, Lisa, Calvin, and Olivier, if you guys have any items you'd like to bring up, that'd be good.
I just one or two items. One, Liza, sorry for not responding to your response about the sponsorship for travel of my students. But thanks for considering my request. I'll try to respond. And another thing is I've been just today I've been testing the new or the latest changes to self-medicate, and I tested the Vagrant, the new Vagrant way to start self-medicate. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be finished or what's the. Is there a way to follow it or to add bits if things aren't working? Where should I report, basically?
I'm sorry, who are you directing that to?
Oh, maybe for Matt.
Okay.
Sorry. I saw some of the issues you opened this morning. If the self-medicate repo is still the place to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what we've done is we've moved to using Vagrant as the supported version, basically the supported way of launching self-medicate. It doesn't mean it's the only way. It's just it keeps things simple for us. It's really the same thing as before, meaning that Kubernetes is running in a VM. The difference here is that we have a lot more ability to configure the VM properly. as opposed to using the Minikube VM, which is like CoreOS and just had a bunch of problems with it.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be stable to use Vagrant.
Long term, obviously, yes, that's the goal. Although I'm sure since it's a recent change, there will be growing pains.
Yeah.
So that said, if you are encountering errors, the same process is fine. Opening issues or PRs on the self-medicate repo to make fixes.
Okay, I wasn't sure the status was finished or in between. Okay.
Yeah, I saw the issue. I was scrolling through my phone this morning. I'm trying to find it where it went.
I proposed a pull request for fixing just a little bug, but later I tried with Vagrant and I had a problem with NFS mounting, which I'm not sure is on my side or some bug or some, there is another way to go, but I have to investigate a bit. So it's not yet clear in my mind.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen any problems with that thus far, so we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Regarding your pull request to fix 39, which is pull request 40, it looks like you open this issue and you say that machine name doesn't resolve, still works on the public IP of the VirtualBox VM. Is there any? Yeah. So I actually ran into the same thing. In order to use Vagrant, in order for Vagrant to be able to change the host file of the host machine, you need to install a Vagrant plugin, and it's in the doc.
Yeah. The fact is, I was still using selfmedicate.sh without Vagrant, and then I exhibited the issue. So that's why I wasn't sure what was the best way to go, either Vagrant up or start medicate, selfmedicate.sh.
Yeah, I updated the docs recently. Actually, I just merged it yesterday. Derek reviewed.
Maybe the thing is, I didn't read the docs, so maybe the README could be ability to just give a short hint instead of pointing to the docs. Because if you read the docs already in the past, maybe you feel confident and then you go the wrong way or something like that. So maybe the README is closer. I don't know. Anyway.
Could be. Well, I'll just tell you, I mean, either way will work. In fact, I typically do run self-medicate outside of Vagrant because I'm running Linux for my machine, so I don't really need to run Vagrant. But I just found a typo in the docs. I think it shouldn't be a problem if you do want to run self-medicate. I'm not sure if we removed the host file manipulation in self-medicate the script.
Yeah.
If we did, we can actually put it back in safely. That's not a huge deal because it'll just edit the host file inside the VM, which that doesn't matter. And then, of course, if it's not running in a VM, it'll edit it, which is what we want. So I'll look into that. But in general, yeah, while the Vagrant method is the only one that we're going to, like, quote, officially support, just because it keeps things consistent, it keeps things simple for us, you still can run the self-medicate file bare metal if you want. And there's a section in the docs that covers how to do that. So,
well, actually, I wasn't running it bare metal. I was running it with VirtualBox, which worked, basically. So it's nice because it's not broken compared to before. I mean, so
okay,
that's magic.
Well, sure. Well, I'll take a look at your PR. It seems like the using an IP. Yeah, I'll provide comments, but basically we can't just use the IP for the moment. There's actually reliances on the host name when it comes to ingresses. So I'll let you know. It's cool. I'll provide comments, and that way you have more details on where things are. Because like I said, things are moving a lot, very quickly right now. So I'll send you a bunch of stuff, and that way we're all on the same page.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have? Let me check chat. I know Calvin is listening in. Calvin, do you have any other questions before we sign off?
No, but thanks for thanks for getting me out of the new hire training just for an hour. I do appreciate it.
Oh, Jesus. You've been at Juniper for like 6 months, right?
Yeah. Just travel has prohibited my attendance to date. So, but they got
Well,
me
we do
this
post
time.
these meetings as well as the live stream that we do every other Monday on the YouTube channel. So you can always catch up that way.
And beware, we are recorded, so don't tell any secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, now
It's
that
live.
the YouTube URL isn't some kind of weird MD5 hash string, I think I can easily find it and catch up on all that I've missed. So thanks for that.
Sure. That was a lot of effort on my part. I really sweated on that one a lot. Putting just literally typing it into a field. We just never did it.
I'm gonna need you to open. I'm gonna need you to open a blueprint doc for new URL changes. By the way, I think that's complicated. It's very complicated.
It's very complicated. All right, Matt and Lisa, do you have anything?
Nope. For me, this is going to be another week of sort of hodgepodge work, kind of like the PR that I just talked about. So expect to see a lot of activity from me, but I don't know that any of it has like a really big theme. Like I probably won't get around to like working on big syringe features this week. I'm hoping to be able to return to that soon, but sort of more docs, PRs, and proposals and things like that.
All right. Then I will call time of death at 10:42. I will, as always, I feel I have strong feelings about putting this up unedited. I just trimmed the front and the back. I will do that and post this up onto the YouTube channel and update the agenda with the link to the recording. And thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.